You know that sound you hear late at night? That little creak or groan you write off as just the house settling? That's what Sarah told herself too. After a year in the old house, she was used to its quirks. But the noise that started up in her bedroom wall, that was different. It was a soft, rhythmic scratching. And it was the sound that would tear her world apart. For the first few weeks, it was easy to explain things away. That scratching noise? Just a mouse? The food that kept disappearing from the pantry? She must have been more forgetful than she thought. And the thermostat, which was always a few degrees warmer than she'd set it? Probably faulty wiring, but the one thing she couldn't shake was the feeling of being watched. It was that primal itch on the back of your neck that tells you, even when you're in an empty room, you are not alone. Then the small things started to get bigger. One evening, she saw a floorboard in the hall was popped up. Annoyed, she stomped it back into place, but the next morning, it was raised again. Then came the smell, a faint, sour odor drifting from the air vents. The true horror didn't set in until one afternoon while she was cleaning. She went to dust the vent in her bedroom and noticed the grate was loose. With her heart pounding in her chest, she pulled it away. And there, in the darkness of the wall, was a small, perfectly drilled peephole. Aimed directly at her bed. Panic took over. This wasn't a ghost. It wasn't the house settling. It was a person. Someone had been living in her walls, inches away, watching her every move for weeks. That night, she hid in the bathroom, door locked, phone in her trembling hand. And she heard it. Not a scratch this time, but a heavy thump from the crawl space right above her head. Then, the sound of someone moving. She barely breathed as she dialed 911, her hand shaking so badly she could hardly hold the phone. When the police got there, they found him. Tucked into a narrow cavity behind her bedroom closet, they found a cramped, filthy space. It was filled with food wrappers, empty water bottles, and a makeshift bed. The man they arrested had rigged the vents so he could look down into almost every room. He told them he'd been in there for nearly a month, watching her sleep every single night. Sarah never set foot in that house again. Our next story is about a college kid named Mark, who was watching his parents' house in a remote suburb. The first night was quiet, a little too quiet. Then, around midnight, a loud knock slammed against the front door. This wasn't a friendly tap. It was a hard, demanding bang. Mark froze. Nobody was supposed to be there. He crept to the peephole and looked out. A man stood on the porch, soaked from the rain, just staring at the door with a huge, unnatural smile. Mark backed away and didn't answer. The knocking stopped, but the silence that came after was somehow worse. He heard footsteps on the gravel driveway, circling the house. He saw a dark shape pass by window after window. Mark scrambled into the pantry and hid, his mind racing. Help was a phone call away, but danger was right there, separated from him by just a thin pane of glass. He called the police, whispering his address. While he waited, he risked a peek into the living room. The man was there. He was standing at the sliding glass door in the back, his face pressed right up against it. He wasn't even trying to get in. He was just standing there with that same horrifying smile plastered on his face. He lifted a hand and tapped on the glass. A soft, gentle tap, over and over. Just watching, unblinking. Mark stayed hidden until he heard the faint sound of sirens. When he dared to look again, the man was gone, vanished back into the rain. The police never found him. This final story shows that sometimes the scariest things are the ones that make no sense at all. A guy named David had just moved into a new apartment. The walls were paper thin. He could hear his neighbor's TV, their arguments, everything. But one night, around 2 a.m., a new sound jolted him awake. Someone was in the hallway, whistling. It wasn't a real tune, just a weird off-key melody that sent a chill right down his spine. And it kept happening. Every single night between 2 and 3 a.m., the whistling would start. It never got closer, and it never got farther away. Just a constant, eerie presence in the hall. David tried to ignore it. Just a weird neighbor, right? But then, one night, it changed. The whistling started as usual, but then he heard a sound that made his blood run cold. The click, of his own deadbolt, unlocking from the outside. He lay in his bed, completely frozen with terror. He watched as his apartment door slowly creaked open. A dark figure stepped inside and walked into his living room without a sound. David could just barely see its silhouette as it sat down in his armchair. And then, it started to whistle that same tuneless melody, softly in the dark. It never moved, never looked at him. It just sat there and whistled for what felt like an eternity. Then, just as quietly, the figure stood up, walked to the door, and left, closing it gently. David didn't move until the sun came up. When he finally got the courage to check, the front door was locked, just how he'd left it. We think of our home as our sanctuary. It's the one place we can lock the door and feel totally safe. But the truly terrifying stories are the ones that prove that locks don't always matter. Sometimes the monster is already inside with you. If you have a true story you want to share, send it to the email in the description below. And for more horrifying true stories, make sure you subscribe and turn on those notifications.